What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. My name is Miko, joined once again by my guy Morgan Cannon, and we have another special guest with us today. The senior editor of Pride of Detroit, Ryan Mathews, is here to join us. Ryan, what's going on with you, man?
Not a whole lot. I wanted to join the M&M boys.
Yeah.
Bro, so like it's funny that you say that because like every time I've tried to think of like, hey, me and Morgan should have like a special like name for our videos, and that's the first one that comes up, and I'm like, I also just don't want to.
Well,
like it's also just like too on the nose.
I apologize for putting that on you, but I did, so I'm sorry. I guess I don't know.
No, it's all good. I mean, it's funny. It would be something people would remember.
I was gonna say between M&Ms or something that has to do with our beards or something like that. Like it'd be one of those. But no, man, appreciate you coming by. Obviously, we are still in the midst of the off season. We are a couple weeks out from the NFL draft, and that's kind of been the bulk of what we've been talking about here on the channel so far. Is just whether it's you guys talking about it in the live stream as far as best possible value, whether it's a day 1, day 2, or day 3 pick. Us over here just talking, last week we talked with Kent about just, technically like how athleticism and RAS score kind of plays into the draft process. But today we kind of wanted to have you on to talk about something that also very much comes with the NFL draft. And it's something that every fan clamors for whenever their team is picking closer to the bottom, which is trade back. Or in some cases, if you're one of those rare fans, they want their team to trade up to, be more aggressive and get one of the better players. And I thought it'd be really cool to have you on to just kind of walk us through just really what it means, what trading in the NFL draft really looks like these days, because it's not as cut and dry, I think, as people think it is.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the Lions find themselves in another, unusual situation, I guess, is the way that I'll characterize it, because normally we're always watching a Lions draft and it was always, man, like what top 10 guy is the Lions, are they going to be able to grab at the top of the draft? But now you're in this weird position like last year where you're trying to do a mock draft and you have no idea who could be there that late in the first round. And I think that there was a smidge of that in the 2022 draft until Brad Holmes was like, I'm just going to package everything up and I'm going to take the best wide receiver in this draft class and I'm going to get him at a huge discount because all these other receivers are coming off the board. So again, at 28, I think the Lions this year, they find themselves in this position where they have needs. I think the Lions absolutely have needs. Do they have guys who are going to slot in on day one? Potentially, maybe. They'll have to earn that spot, just like any other player on the roster. But if there's a guy who they have pegged as he is a first-round edge player, and he's still there, it'll be a Terry and Arnold situation. I think that Brad Holmes would have no problem moving up and grabbing that guy. If it's a guy who they think can step in and either be a guard right now or be a guard or center in the future, I think that Brad Holmes would be more than willing to move up and grab that guy. So I think there are needs, and I think there is room for discussion about how Brad Holmes is going to move because, I mean, think about it, guys. When has Brad Holmes not made a trade in the first round? 2021. It's the only time that he didn't make a move in the first round, and it was Penei Sewell. I mean, that was an easy pick, right? I mean, some idiots wanted Kyle Pitts. We won't talk about who that was, but I think that there's a lot of room for discussion, though, just because, I mean, the guy, he moves around and he's not afraid to do it in the first round.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think one of the places I want to at least start the conversation, because we can definitely go in a number of different directions when we start talking about trades, is at least start with probably the least popular option for a lot of fans, which is trading up. And I think you already kind of briefly touched on it. But I mean, if you're looking at the Lions right now and looking at their needs, why would the Lions possibly want to trade up in the first round? Like, obviously that means giving up more draft capital. So when you look at this team and you look at, again, this draft class, what is the situation, or why do you think they would even entertain the idea of trading up?
Yeah, I really think back to the 2023 draft class, and there was that maneuvering that they made when Witherspoon came off the board, and I think the Lions pivoted to plan B. And I think they had a sense that they could definitely get Gibbs at 12, so they moved back. And in the aftermath of that, if you remember from the Inside the Den that they did, Brad Holmes talked about how, well, we had this many players that were in the first round bucket. These were guys that were first round picks to us. And we were going to get those guys regardless of who was on the board. We were going to get our guys. And that draft speaks to that, right? Like they got Gibbs, they got Jack Campbell, You're talking about, again, it's the positional value thing, right? So it's like positional value be damned. These are our guys who have first round grades. They're on the board after doing a little bit of maneuvering, and they ended up with them. So I think that if Brad Holmes is seeing the board kind of play out and he sees a guy who, hey, this is one of our guys who has a first round grade, be it an edge player, be it a offensive lineman. I'm really trying to think of another position. I'd have a hard time believing that they'd move up for like a wide receiver. I'd have a hard.
Sure.
I mean, even though there's a long term need there, I don't think that there's room necessarily day one to be like, okay, like we need to upgrade Tim Patrick. We need to create competition there. I wouldn't view that as a position, but I mean, cornerback, you're not going to do it. You did it last year, so there's a limited number of positions, but I think it really. It all boils down to that, guys. I think it boils down to, does the player have a first round grade and do they fit a position of need? And if they do, then I think Holmes would have zero problem making a maneuver to go up the board.
And that's where I'm at with it too, because he said as much, right? Like his board doesn't always match up with everyone else's. He's like, I have a finite number. And so like Ryan said, if if it's pick 22 or 21 and they're like, we only have two, of our first round guys left that we have a first round grade on, and no doubt, I think he'd move up, just because we've seen like he operates that scouting department. It's Brad Holmes, right? We're going to operate how I want this to go. There's collaboration, but he clearly has cracked the code on quite a bit of the college evaluation. You know what I mean? Like, because he's got some misses. He's not perfect, because no one is, but. Yeah, I'm all for it. That's where the trust has come from for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he hadn't had, like, the 2023 draft class was kind of when I was like, I'm going to shut up now. You know what I mean? Shut up.
Well, I think like Ryan brings up the 2023 draft class. I still look at last year when we're talking about like another, like the most recent time when Brad has traded up in the first round. It was for TA, and it is like kind of like you're saying, Morgan, like reading the tea leaves and seeing like, hey, our number one guy is falling. How high can we get up to guarantee our chance of getting them? And that's kind of how I see like this draft possibly going, if the Lions were to go up, is if they see a guy that's very similar to what you both are saying, whether it's someone like one of their few players that they have as a first round talent, and they're just like, hey, we don't want to chance it. We don't want to risk somebody else possibly taking them. That's a situation where I see they could probably jump up. I think in those situations, I don't expect it to be like a huge jump, right? Like if you're at 28, you're probably trying to go from like 28 to maybe 25 or something like that. But that's, at least, again, that's kind of just like how I see it as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, like some of those guys that just stand out to me, like if Shamar Stewart is there at 21, 22, I mean, I don't think Brad Holmes would be the only guy who would be calling about moving up, but I think you look at what the Lions have in the chamber too, right? And you talk about what draft picks they have. They have 28, they have 60, they have 102, they have 130, and then after that 130, it's this big gap. Like they don't pick again until 196. So they have a fourth round pick. They don't have a fifth round pick right now. I think generally speaking, I would want to move back, but I would also understand the rationale if Brad Holmes moved up, because there is a guy. And there's a no doubt he's a first round guy. He's not going to make it to 28. He's one of our guys, though. I would be on board with Brad Holmes moving capital. Now, would you guys be in favor of him moving capital that is beyond 2025? Like if it takes a second round pick in 2026, if it takes maybe a first round pick, if you're trying to move up into the teens because you really think Shamar Stewart is the guy, are you willing to move off a 2026 first round pick? That's when it starts to get dicey. And I think that your answers may vary, but I was wondering what you guys would think about that.
No, that's an interesting one. That's maybe jumping ahead a little bit, because I actually did kind of have like a question that's somewhat phrased around there, where it's just like, is there a player that you would trade up, like make that kind of big jump for? And for me, there's like two and a possible for me personally.
Okay. Who are they?
So we have Mykel Williams out of Georgia. I think like if you're trying to find, again, that edge player that you really feel like you can put opposite Hutch and really develop and like truly be that 1B, 2 Hutches 1A, like I think Mykel can definitely develop into that player. And the other one is Shamar Stewart, like you mentioned. I think he's another one of those guys. I know you and I talked about it, and we're not, you weren't necessarily sure about trading up for him just because of the production that he had in college. But it's really hard to ignore those kind of traits. And like I said, it's more of like the pairing. Like you pair those traits with Hutch, and I start to feel like the value of trading up into the higher 20s or even like the late teens could be worth it for those types of players. And then my possible is Jahad Campbell. Like if you just wanted to roll the dice and just be like, we want a dude, the fans would be a little pissy for like, a couple of days. But once you get that dude like in camp on the field, like I think everyone would be like, yeah, they made the right decision.
So is the question like, who would I trade? Like what player would I trade a part ways with a 2026 first for?
I guess, yeah. Take it from that standpoint. Like, is there any guy that you'd be willing for, or you'd be comfortable with the Lions moving off of a high draft pick in 2026, whether it's their first rounder? I guess, I mean, if they play well, hopefully their second round pick isn't very high. But either of those picks, like, would you be comfortable, or I guess not comfortable? Like, which guy would you pick out of this class to move off something like that valuable?
A second maybe for like a Gray Zabel or something like that, like someone who could eventually take over for Frank here in 3 years, because they obviously value the center, something like that. But nothing, a first I would be freaking out, man, just because we keep naming these players, right? They're all going to be expensive. Like I think there's a world, like if JMO goes off this year, they're going to want to keep JMO. They're going to want to keep, BB and Kirby. It's going to get expensive quick. So some of these cheap spots, that's why I was thinking, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, man, Manu at guard would be pretty good right now. Because if you had him and Mahogany rolling, that'd be cheap for a couple years. Yeah. So no, I probably wouldn't, man. I would freak out if Brad did that. I'd trust him. I would have like, I'd have to breathe, do my little porch exercises, if y'all know what I mean, and hang out. And then I'd be good probably after I come to terms with it. Took me a little bit though, probably. I'd be scared. Jeremy would be freaking out. Think about that. The Jeremy freak out meter.
Oh, it'd be awesome. It'd make for one of the best like streams ever.
Oh, dude. He'd be on like a 9 or a 10. Maybe not a 10, 8 or a 9.
Move up for Ashton Genty, and I want a camera on Jeremy Reisman.
They'd have to carry him out of Allen Park, son. He'd be so mad. He'd be so mad.
Immediately loses credentials because he's just lost his mind.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Good covers. But go ahead, Miko.
No, I was going to ask Ryan, like, what about you? Like, is there anyone that you look at in this draft class that you're just like, man, they're worth, whether it's a first round or a second round pick in 2026 to trade up for?
I guess unless you're doing like a massive move up, right? It's kind of hard when you think about like prospect versus like spot. And it's like, I don't know if I have a really good feel. And I don't think anybody has a really good feel about like, once you get past like 16, 17, 18, like who's coming off the board and when are they coming off the board? I don't know. Like, and I think that's the general consensus that I've seen is like picks 20 through 40. I don't know.
Good.
I don't know who it could be. It could be anybody. So like, moving up that high, I think I'm probably in the same boat as Morgan, like seeing a first round pick go. I mean, first round picks are just uber valuable. No matter if they're at the end of the first round or if they're, obviously if they're up the top, then they're super valuable. But like, it's tough to move off that. Like, I would be much more comfortable moving off like a future second. And I guess when you look back at the 2024 draft, last year's draft for Terry and Arnold, it was, let's see, the Lions traded pick 29, and they also traded pick 73 in the third round that year to move up to 24. You look at what the Lions have right now, and they only moved up 5 spots, So I don't know, to move up some more. I have some historical data that I think I kind of want to get into with you guys a little bit to give you kind of an understanding of like the precedent that's been set historically when it comes to draft value and how much it costs to like move up to certain spots. But we can get into that later.
No, I was gonna say that's actually a really good segue, because I think that's going to be the asking price, or at least the asking question of any fan that's talking, like we're talking trading up, because I think you're still going to have some fans that are going to go back to the JMO trade and they're going to be like, oh, well, the Lions once went from 32 all the way up to 12 and they made that look like a cakewalk. Like, why can't they do that every year?
Yeah, right.
Different teams, different financials. That's back when they had a bunch of draft capital still. Like, shoot, I could go on and on about that. But, yeah.
One GM may or may not have been sober. Who knows?
Thank you, Kwesi.
That much is true too. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if you guys want to get into it, I can give you some of the history and some of the rundown on the trade value chart, because I know that's changed so much within the past. I mean, I've been at Pride of Detroit for over 10 years now. And I mean, it went from the Jimmy Johnson value to then it went to, the Rich Hill model. And now I think a lot of people are adopting over the caps, Jason Fitzgerald and Brad Spielberger, their NFL trade value chart, which they updated after going back and looking at the data for the draft picks from the 2011 draft to the 2015 draft. So the concept of their research, and I'm just pulling this from the Over the Cap website, but the concept of their research was to use the NFL salary data, retroactively grade every draft selection from 2011 to 2015 following the conclusion of their rookie contracts, and use all that data to better project like what the value of each draft selection is, because now you have that rookie wage scale baked in. Teams value draft picks much differently now than they did back when, Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones were ripping off teams for hundreds of draft picks for Herschel Walker. So so they have their trade value chart, and I looked at their trade value chart and then went back and took a look at all of the draft capital that was traded from picks 27 through 32. So kind of like in the Lions range. And I looked at when teams traded back, when teams traded up, what it cost, how high they moved up, how much it cost, what teams were able to get back in return. Because I think another thing too, just as a little anecdote, is when a team has a late first round pick, there's always would a team in round 2 want to move up to get a rookie quarterback so that they have the extra, extension or the option year, in their fifth year for the option. So I don't know how many times it's really happened. I think twice since 2011 there was the Teddy Bridgewater move and there was the Lamar Jackson move. So I mean, it doesn't happen a ton, but it's something that people love to talk about, and I think that there's enough data to kind of comb through here. So I don't know if you guys want to start with like moving up or if you guys want to start with moving down, because I know we've talked a lot about moving up. So
yeah, let's start with moving up and then we can kind of like transition to moving down.
Okay.
From there.
So there are a couple spots, and it's interesting enough that it's going to be a lot of Patriots and a lot of Chiefs. Like they're unafraid to like move off their picks since 2011. 2012, that one kind of stands out to me because the Patriots traded pick 27 and pick 93 to move up just to pick 21. So this is kind of similar to the draft capital that the Lions paid to move up last year. Yeah, to move up for Terry and Arnold. The Patriots moved up for a guy named Chandler Jones, who was pretty freaking good. So I would view that as a net win for the Patriots in that spot. But they traded about 576 points of value. 576 points of value is right around pick 120. So you're talking about like an early 4th round pick when it comes to that spot. Depends on where compensation picks kind of fall and everything like that. But that's a pick that stood out to me. Another trade that stood out to me were the Saints. They traded picks 27 and 91 to move up to pick number 20. And I believe that was to get Brandon Cooks. So there's a move up for a wide receiver kind of move there. Similar, you're moving up 7 spots. The big one, the big kahuna though, the biggest trade, I think, as far as a move up from around where the Lions are, were the Chiefs in 2017 when they moved up for Patrick Mahomes. They traded 27, 91, and a 2018 first round pick to move up to number 10. So to move up 17 spots, it cost them their first, a third, and their first round pick the following year. Now, I mean, they got Patrick Mahomes, so I think it's worked out pretty well for them, right? But to move into the top 10, back to our earlier conversation, right? Like if you have your guy circled, if it's like, oh, I don't know, Mason Graham falls, or, Abdul Card, I don't know, whatever it is, right? Somebody falls and you want to move up that high. I mean, you're talking about a first, you're talking about a third, you're talking about a future first at minimum to move up that high in the draft.
That's a steep price, man. What do you think, Miko?
No, I think so. And I think like you look at the breakdown that Ryan kind of has here, and I think it makes sense when you're talking about quarterbacks, right? Because you're talking about like ideally you're getting your guy for at least the next 5 years, if not longer. And obviously that's how it worked out for the Chiefs. But I mean, I think, there is definitely some dangers in terms of trying to jump that high going from the 20s up into the top 10. That's just something I honestly like, even though I say like there are guys that I think the Lions could trade up for or that I would like to see them trade up for. The top 10 is nowhere near where I want them trying to get, because like you said, Ryan, like the price tag becomes too much. If you want to get into like the low teens or even like literally like 15, because you think that that's where you can probably get the likes of Williams or Stewart and still be able to like retain some of your draft capital in the future, I'm all for that. But clearly the top 10, based off of like what you just kind of laid out, Ryan, like that's just a little too steep that I think that like no fan should really want at this point.
Yeah, and some of those, just real quick, some of those examples they're kind of old. Like 2017 is like that's a while ago. You know what I mean? Like a recent evaluation, 2022, the Chiefs trade 29, 94, and 121 to move up 8 spots to take Trent McDuffie in 2022. So they moved off quite a bit of draft capital. But like the Chiefs the Chiefs think draft picks be damned. Like they'll just move around at the end of the first round. They don't care.
Yeah, like Veach has got it going on a little bit, you know what I mean? But I'm in the same boat as y'all. It make me get pretty worried just with trying to keep this group together, trying to keep the core together for like the foreseeable future. And I think that's the quickest way to like, have a championship caliber roster year in and year out. You've obviously got the players now. So to pivot from that, Ryan, how would you, what would it look like to move back a little bit? Like if the Lions wanted to acquire, another day 2 pick or a day 3 pick kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, I just love dunking on the Vikings, so I just want to talk about one of my favorite trade backs of all time. And in 2013, the Patriots had pick 29. They traded with the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings gave picks 52, 83, 102, and 229 to move up 229 and take Cordero Patterson. I don't know why they needed Cordero Patterson that bad, but they moved off 67 points in value to move up that high. And when you're talking about 1,367 points in value, you're talking about like the equivalent of a first round pick at 25 overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for reference, this is Cordero Patterson that has now moved to running back. Like he was a wide receiver once upon a time.
It might have sounded like a great idea in theory, but I mean, you're trading pick 52, so you're firmly situated in the second round there. Pick 83 is a decent third round pick. I mean, if you're in the Lions' shoes, right, and you're sitting at 28 and you have a team show up and say, we'll trade you 3 more picks, basically in the top 100, kind of hard pressed to say no to that. Right?
Yeah. I'm saying yes.
Give Brad Holmes all that ammunition. Like, please give me all those more opportunities to find these day 2 picks that are just hidden gems.
And hopefully they can be dogs and they can be cheap and we can keep this thing on rolling. That's the way to do it, bro. Like I want to keep all these dudes. Go ahead.
That's honestly the part right there, the cheap part, right? Like, we get to get like high quality talent that's actually going to be like cost effective. Like, yes, definitely give me that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, and there's some more recent stuff where I'm not picking on the Vikings, but 2022, the Bucs had pick 27. They moved back with the Jaguars. They were able to get picks 33, 106, and 180 in return for 27. So they moved back 6 spots, right at the top of the second round. And the Jaguars moved up for Devin Lloyd. I love Devin Lloyd as a prospect.
Yep,
hasn't quite worked out as well as maybe the Jaguars had hoped it would. But like, again, if you don't get a good sense, or if you feel like you're Brad Holmes, and back to our earlier discussion where it's like, all of my guys that I had first round grades with are gone. It's pick 26. Let me start working the phones and see how I can move back. I think a trade like that to move back 6 spots and pick up an extra, what was essentially like a compensatory pick at the end of the third round and then another like 6th rounder. Cool. Done. Let's do it. Get it done. Yeah.
Yep. Especially with as deep as this draft is at certain positions, you know what I'm saying? Go ahead, though.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, looking at Ryan's chart, like, I think there are a number of, like, really good examples that you can kind of look at where, like, trading back has yielded teams well, right? Whether it's at least in talent for some of these players, right? Like, obviously, Xavier Worthy is a situation where, maybe not the greatest person, but at least the talent was there. And that kind of gets me to this point that I want to ask you, Ryan, like, what are some of the pros and cons of trading back? Because I feel like that's something that a lot of fans go to, right? As soon as like their favorite player comes off the board, you immediately hear people pounding the table, trade back, trade back, trade back. There has to be like a balance though, because there has to be both pros and cons to choosing to move back further in the draft and just compile draft picks.
Yeah, I think it starts with that 5th-year option, right? Like picking at 28, you are getting yourself some security in the sense that, I mean, look at Jameson Williams. I mean, look no further than that, right? Like the Lions, again, kind of a unique situation though because of the ACL tear and then the suspensions that he had to overcome. But like last year was our first full year that we really got to see Jameson Williams. And even then, Brad Holmes, at the owners' meetings, essentially said, we're just going to need to see it before we pay the guy. And also wide receivers are really, really expensive. So like we want to be very sure that Jameson Williams is so absolutely critical to what we're doing here. And we're so absolutely sure that Jameson Williams is 100% on the right track that we can give him $35-40 million a year. You know what I mean? Like, so having that 5th-year option, that obviously comes into play. I think the other thing that comes into play is, do you want that draft capital now, or are you willing to sit? And are you willing to wait? And are you willing to, instead of getting those picks now, are you willing to take a future second? Are you willing to take a future third if you're only moving back a little bit? I think that's something to consider too. And you might look at this draft class and say, well, it's deep, but I feel like we oftentimes say that draft classes are deep. So like
100%.
if it's not top heavy, if there isn't like a lot of top heavy talent, would you be willing to move off of this pick that's in the first round that at pick 28, are you getting a high second round guy? Okay, well, like we're fine with moving back on that to get future draft capital in what hopes to be maybe a better draft next year, or you can use that pick to grease the wheels on something else. I don't know. Do you need to do something in the year? Do you feel like it's truly the opportunity that Brad Holmes needs to quote unquote push his chips all in? Well, then you have a future second round pick. Like a future second round pick is worth an awful lot.
Yeah.
I think from a maneuverability standpoint, like I just want Brad Holmes to have more in the utility belt. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that makes a lot of sense because I think that's kind of how I start to look, especially when we're talking like day 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like second round, third round, like I want Brad to have as many shots at the basket as he can possibly have, because I think he does have a good eye for finding that talent that just starts to slip, whether it's, Sam Laporta, where we're talking about Brian Barrich, Kirby Joseph, like those types of situations where it's just like, man, him having those extra picks in those later rounds has really, benefit the Lions. Has he also gambled with some of those picks and maybe not necessarily hit when you start talking about the likes of Broderick Martin? Yeah, like that's happened. But at the same time, I still would trust Brad with those picks. And so like, I kind of do agree with you. If it starts to get to that point where, you start to get to the bottom of the first round and you're just like, man, the talent's not there. There are guys in that range that I would love Brad to pick. But if Brad's like, nah, they're not worth the money that's really going to come with picking them in the first round, then yeah, let's back out, let's regroup, and let's kind of build up the treasure chest to possibly do some things, whether it's in this draft or in a future draft class.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. You don't want to. I just don't want to sacrifice anything like long term for like a short term. You know what I mean? Like just to move up and pick. I don't know. I'm just not really there with any of those prospects. I'm probably could 100% be wrong, but yeah, this sounds much better in terms of whether it's like a future second. That sounds good. Just more like Miko just said, so much of this roster now is comprised of Brad's draft classes. You know what I mean? And it's not just the first round picks. Some of the like cornerstones or the pillars is like, the word they like to use is like Amon-Ra, 4th round pick, Kirby, 3rd round pick, Ali McNeil, 3rd round pick. Like it's all over, man. So Derek Barnes. So yeah, I'm there.
Yeah. I totally agree with a lot of what you guys were putting down too. A couple of other trades that I think might be of interest to people, like I mentioned the Lamar Jackson trade in 2018. The Eagles had pick 32. They traded back with the Ravens, and the Ravens gave the Eagles 52, 125, and a future second round pick. Now, I mean, it worked out for the Ravens for sure, right? But I mean, the Eagles traded 32 and 132 to move back 20 spots, grab an extra 4th round pick and a future second round pick. I mean, they're also coming off a Super Bowl. So, I mean, they had the opportunity to kind of do something like that as well, right? But like, ultimately, like, I think that there's enough precedent here. I mean, like the Teddy Bridgewater trade that I referenced to, I mean, I know that's all the way back in 2014, but Seahawks, again, picking 32, they move back 8 spots with the Vikings to go back to pick 40, and they pick up 108. So like a late 3rd or early 4th round pick. I mean, my ultimate favorite, though, again, it's the Patriots, and they're using the pick that the Lions have at 28. They traded with the Saints. The Saints gave them 56 and a future first-round pick the next year so that the Saints could move up and get Mark Ingram.
Sure.
I mean, would you guys feel so comfortable with moving so far back? I mean, you're talking about pick 56 in that case, or you're talking about the Ravens pick in 2018 at 52. You're talking about now you're not getting any of those players that even you were semi-interested in 28. Now you're kicking it all the way to the end of the second round because Lions don't pick again until 60, right? So it's like, would you be so comfortable with that if you're getting that future second round pick or you're getting that future first round pick?
Morgan, I'll let you lead off with this one.
Future one, yeah. Future one, sure. That sounds good because you're going into 2026 with 2 1s. That'll be pretty sweet. But a future 2, that's tough because I do think like there's not many like, open starting positions. There's a few. There's really not that many. Like the roster is going to be pretty stocked up here pretty quickly, so that makes me think about like how likely is it that Brad uses those like 6th and 7th round picks, or does he package those and try to move up to somebody who has like a better shot at making the roster? You know what I mean? Like that could be a possibility, but a second, no, I don't want to move all the way down just because I want Brad to have an opportunity to take one of those players that's in that like tier for him. What about you, Miko?
Yeah, I'm a little torn on this one because I think like the idea of not being able to get possibly one of the top 50 best players and you're trading outside of that range doesn't sit very comfortably well with me. But I also want to take it back to what you said, Morgan. Like there's not that many starting spots on this roster at this point. Like there's a couple here and there where you could plug in a guy, but again, hypothetically speaking, if there's like this massive run on pass rushers in the first round to where like you're not getting one of the top half of the guys in that position anyway, then what really is the difference of like trading out deeper into the second round and getting a second round pick next year? Right.
Good point.
I'm almost a little more in favor of getting future second round picks than I am future first round picks because of the situation that we're about to walk into with JMO and Hutch, where it's like, you can't keep them both. Like you may not be able to keep them both. So it's like, well, why continue to acquire first round players that you're not going to really be able to pay because you're hitting so well, like you said, on your round 3 and round 4 guys. So why not just continue to stock up on those second round picks if you possibly can?
Yeah.
Perspective too. Like there's so many ways to do it. So, I feel like this is the lane we're going to have to pick as, people who cover the Lions now, because like the days of us, like Ryan said, picking in the top 10, like, well, we know it's going to be one of like a handful of guys for the most part. Them days are over. So we're going to have to get more comfortable having these conversations.
That's right.
Yeah. And hopefully it's a better conversation for people going forward where you do look at, and I'm going to try to at least in post put up like the screenshot of like the chart that Ryan kind of put together, but basically so that you guys can kind of see some of the things that he was talking about, because I think it should at least inform us of like how we look at trade up and trade down. Cause like I said, I think for a lot of fans, it's so just reactionary, whether a guy is there, whether a guy isn't there, that is what fuels their thought process on whether or not they should trade up and trade down. And they're not really thinking about what that type of trade is going to like truly give to your team and where the value is in those kind of moves.
Yeah. The opportunity cost is always something to consider. And I think in the moment, right, you're bummed out. The Lions aren't picking in the first round, man. Like typical Brad Holmes, like not going all in or getting the guy that I want or the guy that's going to, I also don't want to be the guy that says just like, let go, let God kind of thing with Brad Holmes, right? Because like you said, I mean, there's been plenty of documented reports that I trust that lead me to believe that Brad Holmes is just a madman. Mm-hmm. Like before they settled on Jamison Williams, he was pretty close to trading for Deebo Samuel in 2022.
Yeah.
he darn close for figuring out what it was going to cost to move up with the Atlanta Falcons to try to have a shot at Jamar Chase in 2021. He really wanted to move up at the end of the first round to get Levi Onwuzurike because he did not think he was going to be there in the second round. Like, Brad Holmes is, he is a cowboy. Like, he is a gunslinger, and he'll do what he needs to do. But I think that I'm kind of trusting the guy because he's hitting a lot more than he's missing. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
Yeah.
He's not above reproach, but like, yeah, for sure.
That's the way to put it, Morgan, for sure.
What are you going to say?
He's like the rest of us. I was going to say, he's like the rest of us. He falls in love with prospects, and then it's like, kind of like some of us. We're sitting there with our fingers crossed, and you're just waiting to see, is a guy going to fall? Is a guy going to still be there? And I agree with you, Ryan. I think he's hit more than he's missed. I think he's been patient, and he's had people around him that have helped him just like, no, trust the process, trust that this person's going to be there. And he's been able to cash in on those. And
who do y'all think checks him? Ray? Agnew?
That's a good question.
Like who's his governor?
Yeah, like, hey, Brad, roll it in real quick. You know what I'm saying? Like, who do you think that is? And we go, like, Brian, who do you think? Like, Ray seems
I kind of like the Ray Agnew. I was going to say, I kind of like, because I feel like Dan's going to be like, yeah, whatever you want to do.
Let's do it. No doubt.
I want it to be Sheila.
That'd be funny.
I could just imagine her trying to calm both of those guys down because they're both so like, we got to get this guy, and she's like,
no more caffeine. Yeah, she's like, we're cutting no more caffeine is being made tonight. I can see that happening too.
Yes, I want her to reference like the 2021 draft though, and be like, "Now, Brad, you told me that we could wait and we could get a receiver in the 4th round, and we ended up with Amon-Ra. So like, what's different about this guy?" Like, what's different about this guy? Like, I want Sheila to be like the voice of like, not reason, but like the voice of skepticism.
Yeah,
she's the mom in the room. She's the.
For real, that's a good point, bro. Yeah, I didn't. My bad.
She's also like, I'm the one cutting the checks too. So like,
that's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like,
I have some say in
that case. Then typical black mom in the household.
Listen,
I know it's not Rod Wood. Not Rod Wood.
Rod sits there and
no one's taking Rod serious.
No.
Like, just go raise ticket prices again, Rod. Go do that again.
Right.
Don't you have a calculator to play with somewhere?
I mean,
can I just give my phone? Like, I'll turn on YouTube Kids and like,
there you go.
Let's watch this. My bad for interrupting you, though, Miko. That was just something that popped in my brain. Where were you going before that?
No, I had nowhere I was going after that.
Oh, okay. Good, yeah. But yeah, I was like, you know what? That might be a funny. But yeah, clearly someone checks him, though, because to Ryan's point, like those, we've heard several of those stories, like he said, the Debo thing, the Levi thing. Like, so someone's being like, Brad, hold on now. Let's rein it in. How much caffeine have you had?
And I will say, like, that level of him just being a wild card, I think is what has made like these last couple drafts like such a crapshoot for me. Ryan, you talk about like how we don't know, like no one knows who's going from 20 to 40. Like, I am very much in that boat where I'm like, I don't know what Brad wants to do. I know what the roster quote unquote needs, but like
you don't know how the rest of it's gonna.
Yeah, like it could be something so random and that the rest of us are just gonna be like, all right, I guess that's what we're doing.
Kind of like what 2023 felt like, though, right? Yeah. Like the Lions they're trading back. They're taking a running back. They're taking a linebacker at 18. What's going on?
Well, I was on stream saying, I was like, please let it not be Jack Campbell, and it was Jack Campbell.
They're moving up in the second round. Who are they taking? Brian Branch. I like that.
I was lit about that. Yeah.
You know, I thought the 18th pick was going to be Brian Branch. I remember saying like, oh, that's such a Brad Holmes guy. And then it wasn't. And it was just like,
whoa,
Brad just hates me.
Yeah. Honestly.
I guess a couple things to just put a bow on stuff. Cause I think there's like this, like, kind of outdated discourse about future draft picks and how people value them. And this is something that Jason Fitzgerald from Over the Cap talked about as well, was typically what people do with future draft picks. So if you're trading a future second, for example, like if somebody came to the Lions and said, hey, we want to move up to 28 and we'll give you a future second round pick. There's a lot of people that believe that second round pick should be discounted, so to speak, as a third round pick. Like you value it in the here and now as a third round pick, not a second round pick. And essentially like Jason Fitzgerald was like, I have never subscribe to that belief because a second round pick, regardless of when you get it, is always going to be more valuable than a third round pick. Like you get a future first and people will say, well, you need to discount that like it's a second round pick. You need to treat it like it's a second round pick in the here and now. That feels like some, I don't know, kind of like old head, like this is how we have done things for so long kind of deal. Because I don't care when you get it. I don't care if it's pick 32. Mm-hmm. Like if you trade a future first, that 32 is worth more than a second round pick. Like every day, all day. So I think that's something to keep in mind too. And Jason mentioned, he said that I'd normally discount the pick by giving the pick one of three values. Either I give it the value of pick 16, pick 25, or pick 32, regardless of what the current Steam record is. And he's like, that might be not like the right approach, but I feel like it's a better approach than discounting at a whole round.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot more sense in my opinion. Because again, you never know, like trading future picks, you just never know how things are going to play out, right? You never know who's going to be good the next season, who's going to be bad. And so I think the way that you lay that out and looking at it in those three different ways makes a lot of sense to me.
Mm.
Yep.
So are we team trade up, or are we team trade down? Or are we team stand pat? Where are we at?
Up.
I like it. Listen.
Good. I love it.
I feel so ashamed to say it, but like I feel very much like Brad did in, was that 2023, where he was like, we just got our picks and we just got the hell out. Like that's kind of how I feel. Like I just want them to just go get your guys and get the hell out.
That'd be
like
cool.
I feel like they only have so much money available cap wise. I don't need a ton of, draft picks this year. Right? Just go get Mykal Williams and make me happy.
That'd be fun. God, it'd be fun.
Instant gratification, Miko over here.
I'm a simple man. Easy to please.
This is why you get in trouble at the grocery store, Miko.
Hey, if they didn't want to have new stuff there, they shouldn't put it like in front of the aisle that I needed to go down. It's a different story for a different day, guys. We appreciate you, Ryan, for coming by, educating us so much and educating the audience on just, again, the different levels that goes into like draft day trades, specifically day one draft one trades, because we all know that once it gets to day three, like nothing really. All of those moves are just weird anyways.
Like dart throws. I appreciate you guys having me on, and it was it's always good to talk ball with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. It's a little bit of a longer one than our normal one, so I apologize, I guess.
You're also welcome.
I was gonna say, I apologize. You're welcome. I'm sorry that there's not just an audio version of this. It's not my fault. But like I said, Ryan, definitely appreciate you coming by. Like always, guys, if you want to continue to stay up to date on any Detroit Lions news, you can always check out prideofdetroit.com. There's new articles being put up every single day, and I will continue to say it each and every week up until we get to the draft. I don't know how the guys are finding things to write about, but they are. So please go read the things that they are finding ways to write about. Also, if you want to stay locked into any of the video content that we're putting out over here on YouTube, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That's going to help you find any of the new videos we upload each and every week. It'll also make you guys notified when Ryan and the guys decide to live stream over here on YouTube and Twitch. So definitely hit that notification bell so you can stay locked in on any and all of the new content coming your way. So with all that said, I'm Miko, he's Morgan, he's Ryan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.